Hello and welcome everyone. Let us continue with our amendment lecture for July 21 and November 21 attempt, though I would prefer to call it May 21 and November 21 attempt. Revision cum amendment lectures were already provided, but for those students who wanted separate amendment lecture, we are recording these lectures. This is the part 3 of 100% English version of the lecture, and the Hindi English mix version will be separately available. This amendment lecture is also important because there is some amendment which was introduced by the Finance Act of 2021, which is that way not applicable for your attempt, but there is some amendment in your chapter PGBP IFOS which will be applicable for your attempt also. I will explain to you completely in detail when it comes, but right now we will go ahead in the order of our index. The last chapter that we finished was our chapter miscellaneous provisions, and now we will continue ahead. Next chapter that we have is our chapter called TDS, that is tax deducted at source. Let's be honest, highest number of amendments that have taken place is in our chapter TDS, huge number of amendments. So what we will do is, let's go to those amendments one by one. Let's do them one at a time. First amendment is the amendment with respect to employee of startup. When employee of startup under section 80 IAC has been allotted sweat equity shares, at that time you are not required to pay any tax. That tax will be payable later when check 3 events: 48 months from end of the assessment year, or sale of sweat equity, or seizure of employment. Out of the 3, whichever is earliest, from there within 14 days it has to be payable. That amendment came in self-assessment tax section, assessment procedure, that came in demand notice section, it came in TDS of employees, that is 192, and in case TDS is not deducted by the employer or any payer for that matter, whenever the payer fails to deduct TDS, it is the responsibility of the payee to pay that money to the government. So that direct payment responsibility is given in section 191. That will also be same 3, it has to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, earliest of these 3 events. At that time, that tax has to be paid. That first amendment we already studied while doing our assessment procedure chapter. Let's go ahead. This is going to be a very problematic thing for most students, because a very weird amendment brought by our finance minister. Suddenly in the middle of the year, she says, as a temporary relief measure to improve cash flows of the assessees, because of finally COVID-19 pandemic has entered your studies also, we are reducing the TDS rates by 25%. 25% rate reduction. That means what? If the existing rate is 10%, it will become 7.5. If it is 1%, it will become 0.75. If it is 2%, it will become 1.5. 25% rate reduction. But the problem is that this 25% is not going to be applicable from 1st April. You have to be very careful. Every question that I have in my textbook, I have to change the date of the transaction, because suddenly on 13th of May 2020, when the entire country was under lockdown, suddenly finance minister said, from tomorrow this will be applicable. That means, let's be clear, previous year 2021 is the previous year applicable for your exams, which is from 1st April 20 to 31st March 21. Any transaction up to 13th May, it will be at these old rates. And any transaction during this period from 14th onwards, 14 to 31st March, will be at the new rate. So this new rate is not going to be applicable right from the first day. You have to be very careful. Check the date of the transaction. 1st April to 13th May, existing rate 10, 1, 2, whatever be the rate, section after section. You have to learn rates in all the sections. And if the transaction has taken place from 14th May to 31st March, then it is going to be the reduced rate. The only good thing here is that everywhere the reduction is fixed. So it is 25%. So 20 will become 15, 10 will become 7.5, 1 will become 0.75, 2 will become 1.5. The quantum of reduction is same everywhere. But be careful that the reduction shall apply from the 14th of May. It shall not be applicable from 1st April. That's one thing. You have to be careful. From 14th May till 31st March. What is the reduction? 25%. And now comes a bigger problem, that this reduction is applicable for the following sections. Now, sir, how to learn this list of sections? Because there are some sections where this reduction is not applicable. There are some sections where this reduction is applicable. How to learn which section it is applicable, which section it is not applicable? How to learn? You all are the only people in the country who will be able to learn this so smoothly. You will not even realize when you have studied. This reduction, what is the reduction in rate of TDS? 25%. First thing. From which date it will be applicable? 14th of May 2020. Second thing. So be careful. It is not from the 1st of April. It is from the 14th of May. Till 13th May, old rate will apply. From 14th May, the reduced rate, reduced by 25%. Good thing is reduction in constant. Reduction is constant. Now, how to remember the section numbers? You all are the only people in the country who will be able to learn so smoothly. Thank you for your trust. This reduction is not applicable for the following cases. First, any section which is salary related. I am making you learn this. Salary related, we have two sections, 192, which is TDS on salary, and 192A, premature withdrawal from RPF. Reduction will not apply. So, salary, the existing rate is full tax at applicable rates. That will continue all throughout the year. No reduction. RPF, premature withdrawal before 5 years, the rate is 10% all throughout the year. I am giving you the list where the reduction is not applicable. Anything which is non-resident related, any payment to non-resident. Non-resident, we have to always deduct full tax at applicable rates, including surcharge and HSC, full tax, no reduction. Whether it is the sportsman related section, whether it is casual winning of non-resident, whether it is 195, no reduction. And any section which is prohibition related. Prohibition means, I'll tell you, 194B, it's a prohibition section. Casual winnings. Double B, prohibited, strictly prohibited horse races. Never fall in that trap of double B. Never fall in that trap. Strictly prohibited. Because it is very dangerous. You may lose your money over there. So don't fall in the trap of double B. Don't go and bet on horse races. Okay. And (194N), cash withdrawal from bank account. We want to prohibit that, and that is why we introduced TDS. Last year that section was introduced. This year that section has undergone some changes. We will be discussing those changes. Don't worry about that. But these are the sections of prohibition. And finally, if PAN not furnished. Whenever the payee does not furnish PAN, section 206AA gets applicable. Minimum TDS is 20%. Of course, in RPF cases it is MMR, and one more amendment has taken place. That also I will tell you. But that's it. These are the cases where COVID relaxation won't apply. What cases? Two sections related to salary, 192 and 192A. Anything related to non-resident, and three sections related to prohibition, 194B, double B and 194N, and any case where PAN is not furnished. In these cases, the relaxation will not apply. Everything else, 194A, CHIJ, your hot favorite provision, the relaxation is going to be applicable. You have one option, go and learn this list. If you don't want to learn the list, except these cases, everywhere else relaxation will apply. And what is that relaxation? 25%. The only good thing is that all the sections, the relaxation is same. We cannot trust Nirmala auntie. She can keep separate relaxation for separate sections. But good thing is that she has kept same relaxation of 25% wherever she wanted to apply, and from 14th of May. This is the relaxation. And now, the relaxation is for selected sections. Faculty will explain how to learn those sections in the video. So here is the faculty doing it. It will not apply in total 4 cases. Salary related 2 provisions, non-resident related any provision, prohibition related 3 provision, and any case of PAN not furnished. Except these cases, it will apply everywhere. Relaxation is from 14th May. I already told you, thus up to 13th May, old rates will apply. Be careful. Okay. If it is a question on any of these sections, irrespective of date, full year rate will be same, no relaxation. And if it's a question on any other section, up to 13th May, old rate, from 14th May, new rate. Relaxation shall also not be available for PAN not furnished case, that is 206AA minimum TDS of 20%. So this is finally a recap of your COVID-19. What was the first amendment that has taken place in TDS? Direct payment. Employee of startup, if there is allotment of sweat equity, that payment has to be done later. And that amendment has taken place in multiple sections. Second amendment, relief measure due to COVID-19. TDS rates will be reduced by 25%. But first from 14th May. And second, only selected sections. Sir, how to learn? Not applicable in 4 cases. Salary related 2 sections, prohibition related 3 sections, non-resident related any section, and PAN not furnished. This takes me to the third amendment of TDS chapter. The minimum TDS rate for not furnishing PAN is 20%. We all know that. However, in case of 192A, premature withdrawal from RPF, it is MMR if PAN is not furnished. But there is a newly introduced section 194O, which is taxation on e-commerce transaction, TDS on e-commerce. We will be discussing this full section because it is an amendment. Here, the rate, normal rate is 1%, but if you don't furnish PAN, it will only be 5%. We are not keeping 20%, we will only keep it 5%. So, accordingly, 206AA, non-furnishing of PAN will have the following possibilities. Normally, the TDS will become 20% minimum. In case of RPF, it will become MMR. In case of 194O, the normal rate of TDS 1% will become 5%. And 206AA is the case where relaxation of COVID will not be available in rate of TDS. Next, amendment number 4 in TDS chapter. Equalization levy concept, the existing concept, let's have a quick recap. Non-resident, not having permanent establishment in India, specified services. What are the specified services? Online advertisement or a digital space for online advertisement. Exceeding rupees 1 lakh to a resident for the purpose of business. When 6 conditions are fulfilled, 6% all-inclusive equalization levy. No surcharge HEC because this is not income tax. This is a levy under the Finance Act of 2016. All-inclusive 6% equalization levy is applicable. We all remember that? Now we are going to spread this and make the net of equalization levy very, very wide. Till now we were covering only a specific service, that is online advertisement related service. Now we are going to cover a big area under this. We are going to cover any kind of e-commerce under equalization levy. Any kind of e-commerce. Any kind of e-commerce. Any sale of goods, any sale of services under e-commerce will now attract equalization levy. Of course, for that, first of all, payer means the person who has availed the goods and services. That means who should be the assessee? The assessee means the payee, the receiver of the income. You are an e-commerce operator. Same rule, non-resident not having permanent establishment. So that equalization levy of 6%, same 2 conditions, non-resident, no permanent establishment in India, who owns, operates or manages a digital or electronic facility or platform for online sale of goods or services or both. Huge heavy language there. What do you mean by an e-commerce operator? Someone who owns, operates or manages a digital, forget it. The owner of any website, the owner of any application in your phone. Think about it. Owner of the website, owner of the app, owns, manages, operates. What? The digital or electronic platform or network or facility, that is the website, that is the app. If you are a non-resident no pay, remember, in order to attract equalization levy, assessee has to be a non-resident. Residents will be paying normal rate of tax. There is no requirement of equalization levy. If the non-resident has a permanent establishment in India, then again normal rates of tax will apply. Equalization levy of 6% and also this newly introduced 2%, which will cover everything. Not just advertisement services, but everything. Only on non-resident not having permanent establishment in India. Non-resident not having permanent establishment in India. Only such assessees are going to be covered here. And here that non-resident is the owner of a website or app, that is an electronic platform or facility for sale of goods and services. And the payer is someone who is buying the goods and services from that place. So payer can be a resident. That means a resident is buying goods or services online from a non-resident. or any person buying goods or services from an IP address in India. That means supposingly a non-resident has come on a picnic to India, say wanted to enjoy some atmosphere in Goa. A foreigner is holidaying in Goa. While in Goa, that non-resident opened his or her mobile application, some app or website which is owned by another non-resident. That means, can I say, if that non-resident who has come on a picnic in India, in Goa, opens a website of another non-resident and makes any purchases, that's basically one non-resident buying from another non-resident, non-resident to non-resident, NR to NR. But the IP address, the internet connection or the Wi-Fi connection you used in India, equalization levy will get attracted on that also. So resident buying from anywhere, equalization levy will get attracted. Non-resident buying, this point will obviously applicable, this point will be applicable for non-resident because resident is always covered. So of course we are writing point number 2 only for non-resident. Non-resident is buying using an IP address in India. So non-resident has come on a picnic in India and buying from the website of another non-resident or the application of another non-resident, but the internet connection was from India. Or third, a non-resident, now clearly mention non-resident in respect of sale of advertisement. That means this non-resident is selling advertisement to another non-resident. It may not be an IP address in India. That means I am an American. Imagine, let me give you an example. See, I am an American. I am in America. I open the website of an American company. And from there, I am buying something. Of course, I am not a resident. So, I am not covered in point number 1. I am a non-resident, but I am not using IP address of India. I am sitting in America and making the purchases. Not coming to Goa. That means point number 2 also not applicable. If it's a resident, then equalization levy will apply. A non-resident using IP address in India, then equalization levy will apply. But we are talking about an American sitting in America and buying online. That means there is no Indian connection till now. But I am taking advertisement services from a foreign company and who will give me advertisements that will target a customer who is a resident in India. Or the customer will watch my advertisement through IP address in India. Then in that case, equalization levy will get attracted. In our existing equalization levy of 6%, we already had advertisement services, but that was resident buying from non-resident. Here, non-resident is buying from non-resident. See, let me give you a proper example. I am an American laptop manufacturer. I want to sell my laptops in India. And for that, I need to do some advertisement in India. You are the owner of an American advertisement agency. I approach your website, online buying, approach your website. From that website, I take an ad package. That means I am American, you are American, I am sitting in America and making the purchases. But the advertisements that you are going to make for me, the package that I have purchased, in that package, the ads will be shown to Indian customers so that I can generate sales in India. And that will also attract equalization levy for you, the ad agency, because I am the payer. That means anybody who is operating an app or a website, non-resident, no PE in India. These two conditions, non-resident, no PE in India will become our e-commerce operator. And from this operator, somebody has purchased. Who is the purchaser? Purchaser will be the payer. The purchaser can be a resident. Then equalization levy will be applicable. If the purchaser is a non-resident, then IP address should be in India. Then equalization levy will be applicable. If the purchaser is a non-resident, IP address is also outside India, but it is sale of advertisement and the advertisement will be shown to Indian customers, then in that case, equalization levy will be applicable at 2% if the total is 2 crore or more. So, if we compare, non-resident no PE in India was there in 6% also in the new one also. Non-resident no PE in India. That was only one activity, specified service, online advertisement, digital space for online advertisement. This will include everything. What is e-commerce supply? Online sale of goods owned by the e-commerce operator. Online services provided by the operator or facilitated. It is possible that on that website, it's a third party website. Somebody else is using that website to list his goods or services. The website owner is only a facilitator. That will also be covered, or any combination. So we are doing e-commerce purchases. Non-resident, no PE in India is the e-commerce operator who is operating the website. These two same conditions were applicable in 6% also. In 6%, it was only one service, advertisement service. Here we will cover everything. Over there, the monetary limit was greater than rupees 1 lakh. Here it is greater than or equal to 2 crore is also covered. Be careful. Equal to 2 crore is also covered. There the rate was 6%. Here the rate is 2%. There the payer was a resident buying for the purpose of business. Here they have not specified that it can be for the purpose of business. It can be for any purpose. So the buyer can be any resident buying for any purpose. Non-resident buying using IP address in India for any purpose. Non-resident buying advertisement related services for showing advertisements to Indian customers. That will obviously be for business purpose. If the total paid to the e-commerce operator is 2 crore rupees or more, then 2% equalization levy will get attracted. And of course, wherever 6% is already applied, that is advertisement services, then this will not be applicable. And once equalization levy is paid, we all know this, 6% or 2%, then there is not going to be any income tax that will be applicable on the receiver, that is the payee. This equalization levy is your all-inclusive liability that you are required to pay. In India, no separate levy is going to be attracted on you. We are all aware of that. Okay. So that was your newly introduced equalization levy. Whatever was in advertisement services greater than 1 lakh, 6% already covered. Now anything other than that, 2 crore or more equal to is also covered. 2% equalization levy will get attracted. Moving on. Next amendment. Section 194 of TDS chapter is the section for dividend. Till last year it had no importance at all. Why, sir? Sir, because there was exemption. Company was paying DDT. But now due to the removal of DDT, 194 will get activated and TDS will be deducted on payment to shareholders. However, if the payee, that means can I say the shareholder, no? Who else will be the payee? If the payee is a resident individual and we are making payment of dividend up to rupees 5,000 by a mode other than cash, it has to be non-cash. Anything other than cash. Cross check will be allowed. Normally, cross check is not allowed wherever 3 modes are written. Account pay, check, account pay, draft or electronic mode. Over there, cross check is not allowed, but here cross check also will be allowed. Okay. So, non-cash mode and dividend up to 5,000 rupees, then there will be no TDS. Mind you, no TDS does not mean it is exempt for the receiver. The dividend income received by the receiver will be taxable. Only TDS will not be applicable. I don't want any confusion here. Okay. Next amendment. In your hot favorite sections 194 ACHIJ, one thing that is common is the definition of payer. What is the definition of payer? The person liable to deduct TDS. All persons other than individual HUF. Individual HUF, if their turnover exceeded 44 AB limits last year. That means the payer's definition was making a reference to 44 AB. You had to go and check what is the turnover limit in 44 AB. If the tax audit limit is exceeded, then payer individual HUF will get covered. But the problem is that the tax audit limits have undergone some changes. Those amendments are also part of our agenda. We will be covering them in PGBP chapter. The tax audit limits have undergone certain changes. Because of those changes, it becomes a little confusing by making a reference to 44 AB. So what they have done is they have removed the reference altogether. We are now going to remove the reference to 44 AB and directly mention if the payer is individual HUF in these sections. Because remember, company, firm, AOP, BOI, AJP, LLP have to always deduct irrespective of turnover. Only when the payer is individual HUF, we were checking tax audit. Now we will not check tax audit. We will check if the turnover last year, that is immediately preceding previous year, exceeded rupees 1 crore for business and 50 lakh rupees for profession. If the turnover in the immediately preceding previous year exceeded rupees 1 crore in business or 50 lakh in profession, instead of making a reference to 44 AB, we are directly writing the amount of turnover here. Directly writing the amount of turnover. If it is exceeding that turnover, then the payer, who is individual HUF. Remember again, company, firm, AOP, LLP have to always deduct TDS. This turnover criteria is applicable only if the payer is individual HUF. Then you will check last year's turnover. Earlier the rule was check 44 AB. Now don't check 44 AB. Directly check in rupees. More than 1 crore in business and 50 lakh in profession. This amendment has come in ACHIJ, all 5 sections. Achij, hot favorite section. Next, section 194A, that's interest other than securities. In section 194A, cooperative societies are not required to deduct TDS in 2 cases. Case 1, whenever a cooperative society is making payment to another cooperative society, even if the payer is a cooperative bank, any payment to cooperative society, no TDS. And other than cooperative banks, if the payment is being made to our own members, then again there was no TDS. So, cooperative society other than cooperative bank making payment to own members, and any cooperative society including cooperative bank making payment to another cooperative society, there was no TDS. Certain cases where cooperative societies will not deduct TDS. But if your turnover in the immediately preceding previous year has exceeded 50 crore rupees, then you are required to deduct TDS, of course, subject to the monetary limit. In 194A, we do have the monetary limit of 40,000 normally. If the payee is senior citizen, resident senior citizen, then 50,000. If that monetary limit has exceeded, then only TDS will be applicable. But what is the amendment? There were certain cases where cooperative societies are not required to deduct TDS. Now they will have to, if that turnover last year was more than 50 crore. So all cooperative societies don't have to deduct TDS. Only those societies whose turnover exceeded 50 crore last year will deduct TDS in the current year. That's the change that has taken place. Another change that has taken place in 194A is that now central government can exempt any particular transaction or reduce the rate in specified transaction by way of notification. Earlier, it was stated that central government can make any particular organization, institution immune from TDS. But now, instead of specifying the payee, they can mention this particular transaction. They can bring example, a circular like this, that from 1st April till 31st May, no TDS on fixed deposit interest. From 1st June, you start. They can bring limited period relaxation in any of the transactions. So, instead of notifying the assessee, we can now notify transactions. That as and when circulars or notification will be released, it will be taken into consideration. Right now, you don't have to bother about it. Section 194C, contractor section. Already we saw that amendment in the definition of payer. Instead of reference to 44AB, we will say last year's turnover more than 1 crore in business and more than 50 lakh in profession. In the definition of work done for the purpose of attracting 194C contractor section, there was a condition that if you are my contractor, I am giving you specification and I am giving you raw material also. I am giving you specification and raw material. Specification and raw material. Specification and raw material. If I am giving you both, then contractor section will get attracted. When the customer is providing specification and raw material both, then contractor section will get attracted because it will fall in the definition of work done. So people were escaping this rule in a clever manner. I am giving specification and I am making my wife give you raw material. Wife is giving specification, I am giving raw material. When does contractor section get activated? When the specification and raw material both are provided by the same person. But here, I am giving specification, wife is giving raw material. People were escaping the definition of work done, and therefore, with effect from AY 21-22, if raw material are supplied by relative also, then also it will fall in the definition of work done. See, you will use your brain, we will have to bring amendments. So now, me giving specification and my wife giving raw material is not going to be of any use. Moving on. Next section, where there is an amendment, section 194J. In section 194J, there are two TDS rates. 10% is the normal rate and 2% is the rate for call center operators. Of course, relaxation of COVID will apply 25%. So 10 will become 7.5. 2 will become 1.5. From when this will apply? From 14th of May. And this does not fall in salary, NR, prohibition or no PAN. So here the relaxation will apply. These are the existing rates, but we are bringing some more changes. The following payments will now go in 2%. Fees for technical services, any kind of FTS will go in 2%. And royalty, but not all. Royalty for sale, distribution or exhibition of cinematographic films. Only film related royalty. For example, maybe Hotstar or Amazon Prime or Netflix is buying the rights of any movie so that they can telecast it on their app. So that royalty with respect to films will now go in 2%. Other royalty on copyright, trademark, drawing, design, etc. will continue at 10%. So, effectively, it is only still two rates in the section. 10% and 2% subject to COVID relaxation. 10% and 2% subject to COVID relaxation. But till now in 2% there was only one payment, that is call center. Now what do we have? Call center will go in 2%. Any kind of fees for technical services will go in 2%. Royalty only with respect to films will go in 2%. Everything else will go in 10. Professional fees will go in 10. Royalty other than films will go in 10. Non-compete fees will go in 10. Director sitting fees will go in 10. Only three things will go in 2%. Call center, any FTS and royalty on films will go in 2%. Everything else will continue in 10%. And don't forget, whether 10 or 2, COVID relaxation will apply. Newly introduced section with effect from AY 21-22, section 194K. Whenever a mutual fund is distributing profit to unit holder, see, we had section 194, distribution of dividend by company to shareholder. But because of DDT, the dividend was exempt and therefore there was no question of studying 194. This is the year from which we have started studying 194. Likewise, when mutual fund is distributing profit to unit holders, mutual fund was also paying IDT and it was exempt and therefore no TDS. But now there will be no IDT. So share of profit from mutual fund will be taxable for the receiving unit holder. And thus the mutual fund will deduct TDS. TDS on distribution of profit by mutual fund. Whenever you are making payment to resident. Why? Because the rate is 10%. So if the payee is non-resident, 195 will apply. And here, COVID relaxation will apply. Sir, why? Because this is not prohibition, this is not non-resident, this is not salary, this is assume that PAN is furnished. If you are making share of profit, this was same rule for dividend also, but in dividend only if the payee is resident individual. If payee is resident individual, non-cash mode, then up to 5,000 no TDS. Same rule for this also. Flat limit in the section only they have given. Up to 5,000 no TDS. Let's be clear one more time. If the payment is 4,000, there will not be TDS, but it is taxable for the receiver. Only immunity from TDS we are getting. Okay. Next. This is like not point number 12. 11 is over 194K. This point number 12 is just a reminder. In certain cases of special rates of tax, do you remember the rate has changed? For example, dividend of non-resident 20%, share of profit from mutual fund, non-resident 20%. I hope you understand that dividend paid to non-resident or share of profit paid to non-resident by mutual fund cannot be covered in these sections. These are sections only for resident. If we pay to non-resident, then 195 will apply. Dividend from business trust 10% will apply. That IFSC, there is a new rate, special rate of 4%. So wherever the rate of tax has changed, of course the TDS rate will also change. Next, talking about 194N, cash withdrawal from bank account. This section was introduced last year only. Let me tell you the existing provision, then we will learn the amendments that have taken place. If you withdraw more than 1 crore from your bank account, then there will be 2% TDS on the excess. That means if you withdraw 1 crore, no TDS. 1 crore and 1 rupee, 2% on 1 rupee. 1 crore 5 lakh, 2% on 5 lakh. 1 crore 10 lakh, 2% on 10 lakh. On the excess, there was 2% TDS. This is the only section in the chapter where the payment is not income for the receiver. Because here we are withdrawing from our own bank account. And whatever TDS is getting deducted, we will get it as credit. We want to discourage such huge withdrawals. And don't forget, this is prohibition. So COVID relaxation will not apply over here. No relaxation. Not applicable. Sir, why? Because prohibition related 3, B, BB and N. Non-resident, salary and PAN not furnished. These are the cases where relaxation is not going to be applicable. At least we are clear on that much. Yes or no? So what is the change that has taken place? Under the existing provision, if cash withdrawn is more than rupees 1 crore, under the existing provision, if cash withdrawn from a bank account exceeds rupees 1 crore, then TDS is applicable only on the excess. The first change that has taken place is that TDS will be applicable on the entire amount. So now if you withdraw 1 crore and 5 lakh, there will be 2% TDS on 1 crore 5 lakh, not just on 5 lakh. That's the first change. That's a very easy change to understand. Instead of excess, they are replacing it with entire amount. 2%. If cash withdrawn from a bank account exceeds rupees 1 crore, then 2% TDS will be applicable on the entire amount instead of the excess. But the main change is this second change which has taken place over here, and this is going to tremendously increase the work burden on banking sector. If the payee, that means can I say the account holder who is withdrawing money, because the bank is the payer of course, has not filed ROI of any of the last 3 years, So supposingly if we are talking about 2021 in the current year, last 3 years are 19, 20, 18, 19, 17, 18. If you have not filed return for those years and the due date has expired. So see, of course, when you are in 2021, 17, 18 and 18, 19, the due date is long expired. For 19, 20, it depends in which month you are withdrawing. If you withdraw before July, the due date has not expired. If you withdraw before October for tax audit, then due date has not expired. Or if you are a transfer pricing case, then till November also. It depends on which month. But if the due date has expired and you have not filed ROI, then we are going to change everything here. More than 20 lakh up to 1 crore, we will apply 2% TDS, and more than 1 crore, we will apply 5% TDS, both cases on the entire amount. So listen, any assessee who has filed the return of all 3 years, last 3 years, the bank has to check whether you have filed or no. If you have filed the 3 years return, whichever is expired, if 19, 20, it has not expired, you can ignore. But you have to check 17, 18 and 18, 19. If any of the return is not filed and the time limit is expired, then in that case, more than 20 lakh, 2% on the entire amount, more than 1 crore, 5% on the entire amount. And if you have filed all 3 returns, then it will be more than 1 crore, 2% on the entire amount. So it will depend on whether the return has been filed by the account holder or not. And bank will have to check that, whether you have filed the return or not. That's how it is, what can be done. This TDS will come at the time of payment. Relaxation is not applicable. The other things are same only, not much change out here. Monetary limit, of course, aggregate withdrawal. So if I have got 10 accounts in the same bank, it will be the total. But if I have different banks, then there is no problem. I can escape. Of course, I can escape. Okay. And this provision will not apply if the payee, that means account holder, is government, banking company or cooperative bank or post office. Very simple. Main thing is 2 changes. More than 1 crore, 2% TDS, not on the excess, on the entire amount. And if the returns of last 3 years, any one of the 3 years not filed, then more than 20 lakh, 2% and more than 1 crore, 5%. Section 194O, the newly introduced section for TDS on e-commerce. First of all, this section has been introduced from 1st October. Let's be clear about certain things. That means till 30th September, this section will not apply. It will apply from 1st October. Secondly, the rate given here is 1%, and this is not salary, non-resident or prohibition. So COVID relaxation will apply. And here the COVID relaxation will apply from the very first day. Sir, why? COVID relaxation started from 13th May. This section only got activated from October. So before this section got activated, the relaxation was already in force. So students who are giving the exam in July 21 or November 21, they have to only follow 0.75. 1% will never come. And if PAN is not furnished, this was the amendment in 206AA, this 1 will become 5%. See, 1 will become 0.75 post-COVID, which is the entire period because section only came from 1st October. So 1st October till 31st March 21, it will not be 1%, it will be 0.75. But if you don't furnish PAN, it will become 5%. Correct? Whenever, once again, e-commerce operator. So if we are making any purchases from non-resident, then in that case, equalization levy will apply. But in case of resident e-commerce participant, so whenever I list my products on any website, I have listed my products on so many websites, but slowly and gradually I plan to discontinue with all of them because let's be honest, whenever any purchases takes place through a third party, any student is acquiring lectures also from any third party, so portion of selling price has to be paid to the third party. The best place to buy will be directly from me, my organization Coppergate Educate. Directly buy from Coppergate. So we don't have to pay anything from or anything to any third party. And if we don't have to pay anything to any third party, we get that luxury of reducing that much amount in the selling price to student. This is as simple as that. So slowly and gradually I am going to withdraw it from everywhere. But just to give you an example, there are restaurants which are listed on Zomato. That means Zomato must be paying the restaurant. Sometimes it is possible that we have made direct payment to Zomato, prepaid orders. So Zomato will make payment to that restaurant. Every Ola taxi driver is registered with the Ola company. If we have paid through Ola money, then the company will pay to the driver. Or if I talk about a website called Practo, doctors are registered over there. We book the doctor through Practo. We make payment to Practo. Practo will make payment to the doctor. If we talk about video lectures in CA, so many websites, so many portals where lectures are listed, there are students who make payment to that website. That website releases my payment. In all these cases, now we become the e-commerce participant. The person who has sold the goods or services through that platform, that website. That means the restaurant owner, the Ola driver, the doctor, the professor, we are e-commerce participant. And who is the e-commerce operator? Once again, the person who is the owner of the app, the owner of the website. That person is the e-commerce operator, and that person will be making payment to e-commerce participant. So the owner of the website, the owner of the app will make payment to the person who is selling goods or services. Something as simple as you list your products on Amazon. Amazon does not sell anything. There are sellers who have listed their products, and the buyers are buying the goods from the website of Amazon. So at the end of the accounting period, whatever is the settlement period, Amazon will be releasing the payment of that dealer, no? Whatever sales have taken place, subject to timely delivery, quality product. Such payments are now going to attract TDS under section 194O, 1%, but because the section activated from 1st October, then right from the beginning till 31st March, it will be 0.75, of course. Next year, 21-22 onwards, it will become 1%, and if PAN is not furnished, then it will become 5%. Electronic commerce means supply of goods or services, including digital products, over a network. That means we are talking about app-based or website-based sales. Services will include FTS and professional fees as defined in 194J. Now, that means what? Any person who is purchasing my lectures from any third-party portal, third-party website, my services are professional services. I am the e-commerce participant, the website owner is the e-commerce operator, and that payment which is released to me is professional fees. So our payments will now get covered over here. And sometimes it is possible that purchaser of goods or services directly making payment to the e-commerce participant. It is possible. For example, you go in a Ola cab and you are making payment in cash. That means you are directly making payment to the driver. Driver is the e-commerce participant and company is the e-commerce operator. Possible or no? Direct payment. That will also get covered in the monetary limit of this section. If the following three conditions are fulfilled, there will be no TDS. Payee is individual HUF. Whether the Ola driver or the restaurant owner or the professor has furnished PAN or Aadhaar to the payer. Of course, all these e-commerce participants at the time of KYC have to furnish. And the gross amount does not exceed 5 lakh in a year, of course. We professors now therefore do not fall in this category for sure. But maybe that Ola driver who may not be getting more than 5 lakhs in a year, then the company will not deduct TDS. This is like a monetary limit. That way, if you observe carefully in the section, there is no monetary limit. So, any payment by the app owner or the website owner to the participant, that means the person who is selling goods or services on that website, on that portal, will attract TDS at 1%. No monetary threshold prescribed. But if the payee is resident individual HUF, PAN or Aadhaar furnished, and the total is up to 5 lakhs in a year, then in that case, TDS will not get attracted. And if TDS is deducted in this section, then there will be no TDS in any other section. So, supposingly my professional services which are on website based sales are already attracting TDS over here, then again 194J will not get attracted. Once this section is attracted, then no other section is going to get attracted. No TDS under any other section, of course. No TDS under any other section will be attracted. And if there will be any difficulties, it is possible because it's a new section. There may be a lot of queries, questions, confusions. CBDT will release circulars and let us know any clarification if required. As of now, this is the TDS provision for resident e-commerce transaction. Non-resident already covered under equalization levy. Now let's go to the amendments of TCS. Nirmala aunty has lost it completely. She has not left a thing like TCS also. Multiple amendments over here. Let me remind you about the existing provisions of TCS. Three parts were there. Part 1 was sale of selected goods, alcoholic liquor for human consumption, tobacco leaves, timber, minerals, scrap, etc. Part 2 was sale of licenses, parking lot, toll plaza, mine or quarry. And part 3 was sale of motor car exceeding rupees 10 lakh. She has added 2 new parts. In TCS, she has added 2 new parts, 2 new categories of TCS. Especially the 5th category, 4 and 5, she has added 2 new. The 5th category will make TCS applicable to every business, every profession, every industry is now going to suffer TCS. But before that, the first amendment is a small one. If you remember in sale of motor car, which we do in class as part number 3, because part 1 is selected goods, where the buyer is a trader, alcoholic, liquor, etc. Part 2 was sale of licenses. Part 3 we study motor car in class. Over there also, the rule was individual HUF will deduct or will collect TCS if the turnover last year exceeded 44 AB limits. The same amendment which has taken place in the ACHIJ provisions, instead of making reference to another section 44 AB, we will directly write the turnover amount here. If your turnover last year exceeded in business 1 crore, in profession 50 lakh, then individual HUF will be liable to collect TCS here. Just like they were liable to deduct TDS, here they will be liable to collect TCS. So if the seller is individual HUF, then TCS shall get attracted only if the turnover exceeded 1 crore in business, 50 lakh in profession. The reference to 44 AB is removed, just like 194 ACHIJ. That's one small thing. But this is same as what amendment took place in ACHIJ, hot favorite section. Let's talk about these two new parts, part 4 and part 5. This is our part 4 of TCS that has been introduced, and this is our part 5 of TCS that has been introduced. We will talk about them one by one. Whenever an authorized dealer receives an amount for remittance under the liberalized remittance scheme of RBI, liberalized remittance scheme of RBI. This is, I think, a part of your law syllabus. I am not 100% sure, but whenever you want to make payment in foreign currency, forex, up to 2,50,000 US dollars, 2,50,000 not rupees, dollars, you can remit without taking any permission from RBI. You can make foreign currency payments up to 2,50,000 US dollars without any permission. This amount you can check in your law portion. I am not 100% sure, but there is this amount which faintly I remember it is $2,50,000. There will be no questions, liberalized, you can remit. But then you don't have foreign currency, you will buy it from an authorized dealer. So what will I do? I have got Indian rupees. I will go to the authorized dealer, give him Indian rupees, buy dollars. And that dollar will be remitted for my foreign currency payments. Then that dealer will collect TCS from me on the forex that I am purchasing. I am purchasing forex by paying rupees. I am paying rupees, buying forex from the dealer. That dealer will collect TCS from me. And any person who is selling a tour package, foreign tour, I don't know when that will happen, but any seller of a foreign tour package will also collect TCS. When these two people are required to, there are two people here. The person who is selling foreign exchange and the person who is selling tour package. Two people, both will collect TCS at the time of debiting or receipt, whichever is earlier, in any mode. In respect of the tour guy, it is 5% without any threshold. So if I talk about this point B, 5%, no relaxation, no threshold. So if you go and buy a Dubai tour of 1 lakh, 5% of 1 lakh. Or if you go and buy a New Zealand tour of 5 lakh, 5% of 5 lakh. That tours and travels guy, whatever is your tour package cost, he will add 5% on a foreign tour package. Sir, is that increasing the cost of my tour? Don't forget, whenever any TCS is paid by the buyer to the seller deposits that money with the government and the buyer gets credit, no? Hello? So, is that increasing my cost? No. I will get credit of that. Just like in your motor car also. Last year I purchased a car which was exceeding rupees 10 lakh and the car company collected TCS from me. But that did not increase my car cost because that amount today is getting reflected in my tax credit form 26AS against my liability. I will be getting it as refund, and same thing will happen here. Whenever you buy a tour package, irrespective of amount, even if it is 5% TCS, 5% TCS will get attached on your tour package program without any monetary threshold. 5% will be taken by the tour seller to you. But in that other case, that means we are talking about the dealer. Up to 7 lakh, there will be no TCS. So we are getting a monetary limit of 7 lakh. And if it is more than 7 lakh, then TCS will be only on the excess. So if it is 6 lakh, no TCS. 650, no TCS. 680, no TCS. 7 lakh, no TCS. 7 lakh and 1 rupee. 1 rupee, there will be TCS. If it is 8 lakh, then on 1 lakh. If it is 10 lakh, then on 3 lakh. If it is 40 lakh, then on 33 lakh. If it is 50 lakh, then on 43 lakh. Excess over 7 lakh. If the remittance, we are talking about the LRS, liberalized remittance scheme. For education loan, it will be 0.5%, and in any other cases, it will be 5%. Let's do it in chart form. This is an upcoming amendment which I have written down for you already. So it takes less time. Very important amendment that has taken place. In fact, this is that amendment that has not been covered in any of our previous lectures because it came in Finance Act 21. We'll talk about that later. We are dividing the seller over here in two categories: authorized dealer and seller of tour package. Two kinds of TCS. This is part 4 newly introduced. Here there will be 5% of any amount, even if it is 1 rupee, 5% TCS will get affected. Here up to 7 lakh, no TCS. Only on the excess there will be TCS. If it is education loan, 0.5%, and in other cases 5%. This is the breakup. 7 lakh threshold is available only here, not in the tour package. And after 7 lakh, TCS will come only on the excess. First 7 lakh, no TCS. 0.5 or 5%. If it is, you can take the screenshot by pausing the video when you are watching it. If it is education loan, then 0.5%, otherwise 5%. The authorized dealer shall not collect where it has been collected by seller. See, it is possible that I approach this seller. Sir, I want to buy a foreign tour. He says you have to make payment in foreign currency. I said okay. So he made a bill, 1 lakh US dollar, and he added 5% TCS over there. But I don't have dollars. So I buy the US dollars from this fellow and make payment over here. Are yes or no? This person has already added TCS in the bill, then this person will not add. In fact, this person has added on the entire bill. So no need for dealer. The authorized dealer will not collect TCS where the seller has already collected. And whenever in the following cases there will again be no TDS, no TCS. If TDS is applicable and deducted, sometimes it is possible. We are making payment to non-resident. We have deducted TDS already. If TDS is deducted, the transaction will be reported. Then we don't want TCS. And lastly, this is there in all parts of TCS. If you are selling anything to central government, state government, embassy, commission, consulate of a foreign country, then there will be no TCS in this case also. And the last amendment that has taken place here, second last amendment actually, the new category, the last category that has been added in your TCS chapter is this. And because of this category 5, now TCS will apply to every industry. Whenever you are seller who is selling goods, of course, to buyer, whenever every seller who receives any amount for consideration of sale of goods exceeding rupees 50 lakh, and this is on receipt basis. Any seller whose turnover last year exceeded rupees 10 crore, that is the definition of seller. If you go and check the definition of seller, seller means any person whose turnover last year exceeded rupees 10 crore. And you are selling goods exceeding rupees 50 lakh to a buyer. Seller whose turnover last year was more than 10 crore and in the current year you are selling more than 50 lakh, then 0.1% on your excess. 0.1% on your excess. That means if you are selling goods worth 60 lakhs, then 10 lakh into 0.1%. 1 crore, then 50 lakh into 0.1%. Two conditions. Last year's turnover more than 10 crore and this year you are selling to any party, single party more than 50 lakh. You may be selling to two people, one 60 lakh, one 40 lakh. For the 40 lakh party, there will be no TCS. But on the 60 lakh party, there will be TCS. Only on the excess, that is 10 lakh at 0.1%. Of course, this is not going to increase the cost of the buyer. You just have to collect and pay it to the government. That means all these sellers, supposedly a gold bullion seller, one gold bullion, 1 kg gold bar is worth 40-50 lakh rupees. In one transaction itself, they reach the monetary limit sometimes. So it is very much possible that their last year's turnover exceeded 10 crore rupees. And this year they are selling to any party exceeding 50 lakh rupees. So on that excess over 50 lakh, 0.1% TCS is going to be collected. But here they have clearly mentioned that these goods will exclude anything in course of export, anything which is covered in category 1, 2, 3, 4. So alcoholic liquor, tendu leaves or timber, whatever is already covered, motor car, sale of licenses, sale of tour packages, whatever is covered in the previous categories will not come here. Export will not come here. Anything other than this. Two conditions you have to check. Seller's turnover exceeding 10 crore last year and current year more than 50 lakh. Last year more than 10 crore total turnover. Current year more than 50 lakh to one party. Then 0.1% TCS on the excess over 50 lakh will be applicable. Every seller who receives more than 50 lakh, excluding export and excluding anything which is covered in the above parts of TCS, 0.1% on the consideration exceeding 50 lakh rupees, 0.1%. And of course, buyer will exclude those same people, government companies, central government, state government, embassy, consulate, those same people are going to be excluded over here also. This is going to be your TCS implication. And now because industry is not defined, can we say TCS will now be applicable to every industry without any exception. Next amendment. Whenever the payee does not furnish PAN, 206AA gets attracted. Minimum TDS 20%. Likewise, here if the buyer does not furnish PAN, the rate of TCS changes like this. Double of the normal rate of 5%, whichever is higher. Normal rate is 1%. PAN is furnished 1%. PAN not furnished 2% or 5%, whichever is higher than 5%. If normal rate is 2.5, then double will be 5 and 5. 5 and 5 same, 5%. If normal rate is 5%, for example, tour package. So double will be 10, 10 or 5, whichever is higher. Double rate or 5%, whichever is higher. Double rate or 5%, whichever is higher. Check the existing rate. Multiply by 2. Compare with 5%, whichever is higher if PAN not furnished. But in this part 5, the normal rate is 0.1. If you make it double, it will be 0.2. 0.2 or 5, whichever is higher will make it 5. But that's 50 times of 0.1. 0.1 into 50 makes it 5. And thus, here we will keep it very simple for the purpose of 206 C1H part 5. This is not 5%. A very important correction over here. This is not 5%. This will be 1%. Normally, it is double or 5%, whichever is higher. Double or 5%, whichever is higher. But for this part 5 case, part 5, it is not going to be 5%. It will be only 1%, which is still 10 times. What is the normal rate here? 0.1. If PAN not furnished, it will become 1. It is still 10 times. I hope you understood. So please make this very important correction. It is not 5%. It is 1%. There is summary. Those who don't have, it's on my Telegram channel. Remember, if you want to stay connected with me personally, if you want updates from me for video lectures, you have to connect with me on my YouTube channel. And for any material which I provide free of cost to students. Of course, everything cannot be free of cost. Whatever is free of cost, it will be available on Telegram. And whatever is not on Telegram, you can understand that it is not free of cost. So, 1%. Please make this correction. Okay. And last amendment here, similar to TDS, here also there is a COVID relaxation. Good news is that relaxation is 25%. So, 1 will become 0.75, 2 will become 1.5, 5 will become 3.75, so on and so forth. Second good news that this will also apply from 14th May. So, what are the two common things in that COVID relaxation and this COVID relaxation? 25% relaxation, first thing. From 14th May, second thing. But that relaxation was not applicable in 4 cases. Salary related, NR related, PAN not furnished and prohibition related. This will not apply. In category 1 on alcoholic liquor, it will not apply. So that will be 1% all throughout. But for the others, tin leaves or timber or minerals or scrap or forest products, it will apply. Category 2 licenses, it will become 1.5. Category 3 motor car, it will become 0.75. I purchased in the post-COVID period. My TCS was not 1, it was 0.75. Category 4, it will not apply at all because it is foreign remittance. Seller of tour package, full amount 5%. Other cases, first 7 lakh no TCS. Excess 0.5 for education loan, 5% in other cases. No relaxation. No relaxation. Okay. So, in alcoholic liquor, there will be no relaxation. In part 4, there will be no relaxation, and PAN not furnished, there will be no relaxation. This is same as PAN not furnished. What is the rule for PAN not furnished? Double or 5%, whichever is higher, but for part 5, it will be 1%. So, 3 cases the relaxation will not apply. 3 cases the relaxation will not apply. Which are the 3 cases? Alcoholic liquor, the relaxation will not apply. Second, part 4, the relaxation will not apply. Part 4, you can cancel here. Part 4, the relaxation will not apply. And third, PAN not furnished, the relaxation will not apply. Every other case of TCS, same as TDS. Relaxation means rate of TDS and TCS both will be reduced by 25%. From 14th May, be careful about that. Okay. That was our biggest. So, I think I started with the TDS and I have consumed 1 hour, exact 1 hour, only to do amendments of TDS. Maximum number of amendments have taken place in our chapter TDS, but we had to do it, we have finished. Moving on in the order of the index. Advance tax, no amendment. Interest under 234 ABC, there is this fees which I already explained while doing penalties only, that the Scientific Research Association, the charitable trust, the company who receives a scientific research donation, they have to furnish a statement giving particulars of donor so that the donor can get the deduction in 26AS. Just like payer furnishes TDS return and payee gets credit. So, we want these organizations to furnish their statement. If they don't furnish, there will be fees of 234G, which is same as 234E, 200 rupees per day. But maximum to the extent of the amount in default, shall not exceed the amount in which the failure has occurred. And plus there is that additional penalty, just like 234E fees and 271H penalty, both are for the same default, late filing of TDS TCS return, 200 rupees per day, maximum equal to the TDS TCS amount, plus penalty of minimum 10,000, maximum 1 lakh. Same manner, we have 234G and 271K. This is also minimum 10,000, maximum 1 lakh, and this is also 200 rupees per day. Exact same concept as TDS return will be applicable over here, which we also already discussed while doing our penalties chapter. Refund, no amendment. Likewise, recovery proceedings, no amendment. In transfer pricing, we will be using safe harbor rules and APA to determine your business connection in India. So, you may be a non-resident, but to attract source principal, we may be using APA to decide your business connection also in India, to decide which income is accruing or arising in India. That is relevant for practical applicability of income tax, not relevant for exam purposes. Second amendment may be useful for exam purposes. 94B, section 94B, limit on interest deduction. Whenever an assessee in India is making payment of interest, which is a PGBP deduction for the payer, to a non-resident associated enterprise, the maximum deduction will be 30% of EBITDA. If the interest is exceeding rupees 1 crore, then only this section will be applicable. The disallowed amount can be carried forward up to 8 years. However, this section is not applicable if the borrower is in the business of banking or insurance. If the borrower, the payer of interest, the payer is in banking or insurance, and now the small amendment is, if the lender, that is the payee, is a PE in India engaged in the business of banking. See, we are making payment of interest to a non-resident associated enterprise from India. If we are in banking or insurance business, section 94B limit is not applicable. That's the existing rule. But if the payee is a banking company, is it possible that we have taken a loan from the banking company for our business and we are paying interest? Then also this provision will not be applicable if the payee is a non-resident engaged in the business of India and it's a permanent establishment in India. So, for example, we have borrowed from a foreign bank, Indian branch of a foreign bank. Listen carefully. Indian branch of foreign bank, you understood? PE in India of a non-resident engaged in the business of banking. Look at the language here. PE in India of a non-resident engaged in the business of banking. Can I simplify by saying Indian branch of a foreign bank? And we have borrowed from that Indian branch of the foreign bank. So this time, the borrower can be in any business, the lender is in banking business. 94B will not apply in such cases also. So borrower in banking or insurance and now lender in banking business, not applicable. Income from salary, let's be honest, if you are a CA final student, It doesn't really affect or matter at all. But just to tell you that whenever employer contributes to RPF, there is a benefit of exemption up to 12% of salary. NPS, we get 80 CCD2 deduction, actual salary or actual contribution or 10% of salary, whichever is lower, or if it is a government employee, then 14%. Or contribution to superannuation fund up to rupees 1,50,000, we get an exemption. Now that total exemption will be restricted to rupees 750. The benefit that you take under these three provisions together cannot exceed rupees 7,50,000, and the same will apply to the interest or dividend received from these funds also. The total benefit cannot, shall not and will not exceed 7,50,000 rupees. Income from house property, there is no amendment. It is PGBP and IFOS, honestly speaking, PGBP and IFOS, where a big amendment has taken place, which is not covered in any of our previous lectures. We will be discussing that. I have made a full proper chart of that amendment even before I started recording today, so that it consumes less time while we are recording the lecture. But let's go to the normal benefits first. Deduction of section 32 AD will not available anymore, because this was applicable for any plant and machinery installed up to 31st of March 2020, up to 1920, and now we are in which year? 2021. Along with that, you should also mention, please also mention, and 35% additional depreciation also. In the MCQ lectures that I have uploaded already, I have given this correction in the MCQ lectures. For those students who are only watching my YouTube lectures and have not enrolled in any of my batches, so I made this correction in the MCQ lecture already. And those students who are my students from somewhere or the other, whether any physical classroom or any last 1 year we had only online classrooms, or maybe any video lecture students, then when we conducted our case laws and ICDS lecture, on that day I told students about this, that just like 32 AD, the 35% additional depreciation for Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Telangana and West Bengal was also applicable up to 31st March 20. So 32 AD will also get deleted and 35% also will get deleted. So 32 AD will not come at all, and additional depreciation everywhere will be 20%. Of course, in new regime you don't get it only. Additional depreciation will be available only in the old regime, but it is only going to be maximum of 20%. You are not going to get additional depreciation more than 20%. Okay. The deductions under section 35. 35 is scientific research, 35 CCC is agriculture extension, and 35 CCD is skill development. They all will be 100%. See, till last year, these two were 150, and in scientific research, when we contributed, it was 150 for scientific research or national laboratory. All this will now be restricted to 100%. Everything under 35, everything under 35 CCC, everything under 35 CCD, everything will be restricted to 100%. This amendment was introduced by Finance Minister Mr. Jaitley in 2016. Sir, that's 5 years ago. Sir, how is this an amendment for us? Sir, this was a very bad habit of Mr. Jaitley. He used to bring amendments applicable at a future date. Normal system of bringing amendments historically and traditionally in our country has been, there is a budget applicable for the upcoming fiscal year, all amendments will apply from that year onwards. Mr. Jaitley has had this bad habit, he is no longer there, so had this bad habit to bring amendments which will not apply from this upcoming year, it will apply after 2 years. I am bringing this amendment, it will apply after 5 years. I am bringing this amendment, it will apply after 10 years. He used to bring these kind of amendments. Not applicable immediately, but applicable from a later date. This is one such case. Achha, by the way, that was the habit of Mr. Jaitley, his successor. She has a different habit. She wants to bring amendments every day, in every section. Every day, in every section. So today she will amend this section, tomorrow she will, every few months she brings an ordinance. Every few months. Every finance minister has his or her own habit. One day when I become the finance minister of the country, very soon, it's a matter of time. Talks are going on. Remember, I will only teach tax to you. And if today also I am the best, then imagine the finance minister himself teaching tax. There can never be any mistake. No, what I will say will be the law. Imagine this. Finance minister of the country teaching taxation. What I say is the law. What else is required? I hope you are understanding what I am saying. Every finance minister has his or her own habit. This was a habit of Mr. Jaitley. Bring future amendments. So was brought from 16 but is applicable first time in 2021 that all these provisions will no longer have a weighted deduction. Highest deduction will be 100%. And of course, we know 35 CCC CCD is not available in new regime. In 35 also only that own business 35(1)(1) and 35(2) is available. The others are not available in new regime. We all know that. Okay. Next, this amendment which took place in charitable trust chapter. All the charitable trusts were required to have fresh registration. Same thing will apply here also. All approved association, university, college, institution, all of them will have to take fresh registration, and now the validity will have to be renewed every 5 years. Exact same amendment as charitable trust chapter. Every 5 years you will have to renew your approval. We are not going to grant you a lifetime valid registration like we used to do earlier, and these receiving company, college, association, university, trust will have to furnish that statement about which we discussed in penalties chapter, about which we also discussed in 234 ABC chapter. They will have to furnish a statement giving details of the donor. Failure shall attract penalty of minimum 10,000, maximum 1,00,000 in 271K, and fees of 200 rupees per day in 234G. Next amendment that has taken place is section 35AD. What is 35AD? 14 specified businesses. Invest in this business, we will give you 100% deduction of your capital expenditure. If you take this deduction, you don't get any other deduction. Main target is depreciation. So any assessee taking 35AD deduction of 100% will of course not get depreciation. Building 10%, plant and machinery 15%, furniture 10%, whatever be the block rate. You will not get that. We are aware of this provision. Now what was happening is, assessee is doing a specified business. Listen to me carefully. That means eligible for 35AD. But if the assessee goes in the new taxation regime, that means you are ineligible for 35AD. 35AD is one of the deductions not allowed in new regime. That means I have not taken 35AD. Because I have not taken 35AD, I take depreciation. When I take that depreciation, you know what the AO is saying? Hello, you assessee, you. Are you a specified business? Yes, sir. That means you are eligible for 35AD. Yes, sir. But I am going in new regime, so not taking it. But once you are a 35AD business, you are ineligible for depreciation. So I will not give. Sir, I am ineligible for depreciation if I take 35AD. AO is saying no. Once you do one of the 14 businesses, no depreciation. No, sir. No. 35AD is optional. If you take this 35AD, then only the other deduction will be denied. That means if I go in new regime and I forego 35AD, then AO cannot say that you are a specified business, so no depreciation. If I take 35AD, then no depreciation. If I don't take 35AD, then I will be getting the benefit. I hope we have understood this thing. Okay. I hope we have understood the amendment that has taken place. Yeah. Next, that amendment that you have to furnish CA report on or before. Earlier it was 139(1) due date, which was same as tax audit. Now it will be on or before the 44AB due date. Lot of sections: tea, coffee, rubber, site restoration, preliminary expenses. All those sections you have to furnish CA report. That has to be furnished on or before the due date of tax audit and not the due date of return filing. On or before the due date of tax audit, not on or before the due date of return filing. Okay. Now, please hold amendment number 6 for the time being. Please hold. We have finished till point number 5. I am doing 7 and 8 right now because amendment number 6 is that big discussion. Stamp duty value. You can see the section number and identify. Huge discussion because there is a latest amendment that has taken place in these provisions, and I have to discuss that. That discussion is not covered in any of our previous lectures because it has been introduced only currently, and so we were not in a position that we have discussed. This is Nirmala aunty. This is not my fault. She can bring amendment tomorrow which is applicable retrospectively. She can do anything. I cannot help it. I am covering it with you. That's more than enough. You should be happy. This is not covered in our revision cum amendment lectures also. I will be discussing that. So point number 6, you excuse me for the time being. Let's finish point 7 and 8. The due date for furnishing tax audit report shall be 1 month. 1 month prior to the due date of 139(1) due date. This amendment we have already discussed. Actually, earlier both were September. 139(1) is changing to October, but tax audit will remain at September. Okay, so we are going to keep a gap of 1 month between them. Next, point number 8. Any assessee engaged in business. What is the tax audit limit? More than rupees 1 crore. And if you opt for presumptive, then no need to do tax audit up to 2 crore. So we have two limits. Normally 1 crore, only if you opt for tax, only, so I am saying tax audit, my bad, sorry. Normally 1 crore, only if you opt for presumptive taxation, then up to 2 crore no audit. 44AB tax audit limit we are talking about. Profession, the limit is 50 lakhs. There is no change over there, no discussion. We are talking about business. For business, the turnover limit for tax audit is 1 crore. Who gets 2 crore? Only if you opt for presumptive, correct or no? But if the aggregate amount received, whether it is for sales or any other purpose, in cash does not exceed 5%, and the aggregate amount paid in cash, and word is used, and does not exceed 5%, then tax audit shall be applicable only if your turnover exceeds 5 crore rupees. CAs are going to lose business, I am telling you. Normal limit for tax audit 1 crore. Those who opt for presumptive, no need for audit up to 2 crore because there will be no books of accounts. But now fulfill two conditions. Cash receipts within 5% of total receipts and cash and cumulative cash payments. Receipts and payments in cash. Total for both cash receipts and payments should be within 5% of total. So supposingly my total receipts are 2 crore. In that cash is only 2 lakh. That's 1%. And my total payments can be, loan, repaid, anything. It is not just purchase or sale. Mind you, the word uses receipt and payment. Total payment. So what you have to do is go to the cash account, cash book. Debit side is the receipts. Credit side is the payments. Take the total. Total. Cash, bank, total. Total, apply 5%. The cash should be within that limit on the debit side. That is the receipt side, and the credit side. That is the payment side. Receipts also within 5% and payments also within 5%. Cash receipts and cash payments both within 5%. Then no tax audit up to turnover of 5 crore rupees. No tax audit up to turnover of 5 crore rupees. So normally 1 crore. Those who take presumptive 2 crore. If cash receipts within 5% and cash payments within 5%. Both of total. Huh? Cash receipts 5% of total. Cash payments 5% of total. Then no tax audit up to turnover of 5 crore rupees. This is how it is. And now let's talk about this. There is this one amendment which I have mentioned. This is for PGBP, this is capital gain, and this is IFOS, and I have mentioned it everywhere. So for PGBP I have written under PGBP. For capital gain it is our point number 2, and in IFOS also it is our point number 1. I have written. The existing amendment I have already written, and this is one amendment which we have covered everywhere before. And there is one new amendment that has taken place. First, let us discuss the existing rule along with the existing amendment where the change which has taken place. We all know, we have discussed this before. 5% has changed to 10%. The difference between actual consideration and stamp duty value. Earlier 5% was allowed, now 10% will be allowed. Now we will talk about these three provisions in detail. We are talking about transfer of immovable property. If the seller is holding the property as a capital asset, then 50C applies. If the seller is a developer, then 43CA applies PGBP. And for the receiver, irrespective of, supposingly I buy a property, it doesn't matter from whom I am buying. If I pay less than stamp duty value and the difference is more than 50,000, for me it is IFOS. For the buyer it will be IFOS. So 50C is applicable to the seller, 43 is applicable to 43CA to the seller, and 56 to 10 is applicable to the buyer. This is for the transferor, transfer and the transferee. This is applicable if the asset transferred is a capital asset. This is applicable if the asset transferred by the transferor is the seller is holding it as stock in trade. That means this section is applicable to developers. This section is applicable to investors. And I don't know what is your level of study of IFOS, but IFOS gift provision will be applicable only if for the receiver it is capital asset. Only if for the receiver it is capital asset. So from whom I am buying, I can buy from him also, from him also. For the seller, what it is, you don't have to think about the seller. When you are the buyer, think about it from the angle of the buyer. As a seller, it can be capital asset or stock in trade. We will decide one of these two sections will apply. But as a buyer, I can buy from anyone. For me, it has to be capital asset. Then the gift provision will apply. So at least we have concluded that 50C is a section under capital gains. 43CA is a section under PGBP. These two are applicable for the sellers who are showing income on sale of capital asset. So capital gain, sale of stock in trade. So PGBP, and purchase of immovable property as a capital asset. Gift provisions apply only if the receiving assessee is holding the asset as a capital asset. IFOS. In all three sections, we have stamp duty value. Actual selling price or stamp duty value, whichever is higher, applies in this section. Actual selling price or stamp duty value, whichever is higher, applies in this section for the seller. And it applies here also. But if the difference is more than 50,000, we have a luxury. So if I buy a property with stamp duty value of say 5 lakh and I have paid only 4,90,000. So difference is only 10,000, no gift taxable. If the difference is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, no gift taxable. Gift is taxable for the receiver, for the buyer, only if the difference is more than 50,000. But yes, stamp duty value concept is applicable. Here also applicable, here also applicable, here also applicable. We get 50,000 facility. In all these three sections, we have I am discussing the existing rule. Amendment I am coming to last. By the way, these amendment lectures are on the assumption that you know the existing rule. It's only an extra thing that I am doing. In all these sections, you can call the valuation officer to get your stamp duty value reduced. VO can decide one value between actual and stamp duty value. In all these three sections, you have the facility of taking stamp duty value on the date of agreement. The seller under capital gain 50C can take agreement date stamp duty value. The buyer under PGBP 43CA can take agreement date stamp duty value. The seller under, not the buyer, the seller. Seller under 50C capital gains, seller under 43CA PGBP, and the buyer under 56. They all have the facility to take agreement date stamp duty value if some consideration. Here it is seller, so received. Seller, so received. Buyer, so paid at the time of agreement in those three modes. Account pay check, account pay draft, electronic mode. This is also common. And we have this facility that if the difference between actual value and stamp duty value is up to, this is the amendment that took place. This was 5%, 5%, 5%. All three have become 10. This is what I have already written in the sheet and we have covered in class also. 5% has become 10%. In capital gain also. 5% has become 10% in IFOS also. And 5% has become 10% in PGBP also. The difference which was allowed till last year was 5%. So, and remember, whenever we apply this percentage, it will always be applicable on actual. On actual. Never apply 5% till last year or 10% from 2021. Don't apply on the stamp duty value. On which amount this will be applicable? On which amount this will be applicable? On your actual amount. On your actual amount it is going to be applicable. Not on your stamp duty value. So, the difference up to 5% of actual, permitted difference between stamp duty value, and actual, so that stamp duty value can be ignored and actual can be taken. What was that till last year? It was 555 on actual. Now it will change to 10, 10, 10 on actual. So that one small change, I was not required to make such a big table to tell you that I have already written here also. The permitted difference is changing from 5% to 10%, and remember this 10 will apply on actual because 5 was also applicable on actual. And now we talk about this latest amendment which has not been covered anywhere before. First of all, this amendment has come only in PGBP and IFOS. This amendment has not come in capital gain. This amendment will not apply on capital gain, not apply on capital gain. It will apply in PGBP, that is 43 CA, and it will apply in IFOS, that is 56. Only in these two cases. So now, till here, all the three sections were almost same, except in IFOS we had 50,000 facility. So here we had to only check 10% difference. Here we had to check 10% and 50,000. It has to be more than 10% also. It has to be more than 50 also. 5 has become 10 now. More than 10% and more than 50,000. Only this one minor difference. But now we have a big difference. There is this one amendment which has taken place from this year, which will apply only on PGBP and IFOS, not apply on the capital gain part. What is that amendment? Any transfer of a residential unit during this period. Look at the date decided by Nirmala Aunty. 12 November 20 to 30th 6/21. It's a temporary facility given. And why are May 21 students required to study or November 21? Understand the reason here. Previous year 2021 is your exam year. Of course, 21-22 is the next year. This year is applicable for May 22 students. This amendment is applicable from 12 November to 30th June. And that means a portion of this amendment is in 2021 and a portion of this amendment is in 21-22. And thus, first of all, just like in TDS, it was 14th May to 31st March. You have to be careful. 12th November to 30th June if the transfer has taken place. And it's a deal up to rupees 2 crore. 2 crore is the limit. This is first time allotment. And because of this is the logic why it will apply only in PGBP IFOS. Now I am explaining the amendment. The amendment is simple. Earlier the allowable difference was 5%. In the Finance Act, the amendment that took place was 5 became 10, 5 became 10, 5 became 10. That was the amendment in the Finance Act. And now by way of an ordinance, they have changed 10 into 20 and 20. But only under PGBP and IFOS. So in capital gain, it will remain 10. And in PGBP IFOS also, if these conditions are fulfilled, let me explain the logic. Government in this pandemic kind of period wanted to promote people to buy houses. In a lot of states, the stamp duty tax was also reduced by state governments. If I talk about Maharashtra, 5% was the stamp duty. They reduced it to 2% till December and then 3% till March. They brought good relaxation. Now they brought further relaxation, which is this. If I want to buy a house, I go to a developer. Sir, you have made a new building. I want to buy a house. The value of that house should be up to 2 crore. First condition. 2 crore. This should be first time allotment. That means builder selling to customer for the first time. Once I buy and I subsequently sell, it will become this case. We don't want to give the facility here. This has to be first time allotment. And first time allotment can only be developer to customer. And thus, developer will come here. Customer will come here. In future, if the customer is selling, it will become like this. We don't want to give the relaxation here. We want to give only on first time allotment. And first time allotment means the seller is the developer. So 43 CA will get attracted, 50 C cannot come. And thus this amendment, first let's be clear about why this amendment has not come in 50 C. This amendment will apply only in 43 CA on the developer, because the developer is the person who will be doing first time allotment of the flat, of the house, and the customer will be the buyer. So the developer will get the facility. The difference of instead of 10%, 20% will be allowed, and the customer who is buying will get the facility. Developer is covered in 43 CA and customer is the buyer. He is covered here. In future, if the customer is selling, that's not first time allotment, no? That will become this case, and I have already told you here it will not be applicable. So, 3 conditions to be fulfilled. Transfer has to be during this period. This period is very confusing. You will have to remember the dates. 12th November 20 to 30th June 21. Condition 2, the value of the residential unit should be up to 2 crore. And condition 3, it has to be first time allotment. And because of this condition of first time allotment, automatically 50C is out of question. it can only be 43 CA, and the buyer, of course, buyer can buy from anybody. For the developer and the buyer, we are changing the allowable limit from 10 to 20, but only when these three conditions are fulfilled. So let's be clear. First of all, 5% differences. First of all, what is this difference? Actual amount and stamp duty value, the difference. Up to 5% of actual we were checking. Always we will apply percentage on actual. Earlier it was 5. By way of an amendment, all three have become 10. So that is the amendment which is already covered in the notes and in our class also. Full course batches. 5 has become 10%. But now we have another amendment where 10 will become 20. But first question, or first thing to understand, 10 will become 20 only in 43 CA and 56, not in 50 CA. Reason is, it is first time allotment. That condition itself makes it clear. And what are the other two conditions? Only up to 2 crore. So if the consideration is more than 2 crore, then only 10% facility will be available. The transfer has to be during this period. So if your exam question says 1st November or 10th November, then it has to be 10%. If it is a future sale, then it will be 10%. If it is more than 2 crore, then it will be 10%. When these three conditions are fulfilled, then only it will become 20, and that also only for PGBP and IFOS, not for capital gain. This is that amendment which we have not covered anywhere else. Of course, 5 to 10 is mentioned over here. Rest we have discussed here. You can take screenshots if you want by pausing the video. I am just scrolling it, because if you have this with you, it will be better. Okay, let's go ahead. That completes our amendments of PGBP. Very little is left now. In capital gain, in slum sale also that same amendment. The CA report has to be on or before the tax audit due date instead of return filing due date. This 5% to 10% and the second amendment, latest amendment already discussed, mind you, will not apply in capital gain. The second amendment, 10% will apply, but that 20% will not apply. Next, cost inflation index. This obviously you have to learn. Base year 100 and exam year 301. At least 2 index you have to learn. Section 55(2), FMV option. Whenever an asset is acquired before 1401, instead of actual cost, we can take FMV on 1401, cost or FMV, whichever is higher. But the amendment is that if the stamp duty value is available, on 1401, then the fair market value shall not exceed the stamp duty value. The rule is actual cost of acquisition or FMV on 1401, whichever is higher. Any asset acquired before 1401, this will become your cost of acquisition. This FMV on 1401 cannot exceed your stamp duty value. This is the amendment. The FMV cannot exceed stamp duty value. Okay. Next, one small amendment is with respect to, you can only read segregated portfolio, not relevant for exam purposes. As far as IFOS is concerned, we have already done that 5% to 10% amendment, which is applicable in all 3 sections. But 20% is applicable only of selected conditions 12th November to 30th June. First time allotment up to 2 crore, then it will become 20%. Next, dividend income and mutual fund profits have become taxable from this year. That everybody knows. Dividend and mutual fund profits have become taxable. Against dividend income and mutual fund profits, we will give you deduction of expense like we do in section 57. But 2 conditions. First of all, only interest expense. So any bank collection charges, any agent charges, etc., not allowed. And that interest will also be maximum 20%. So if your dividend is 1 lakh, you have got 30,000 interest and 10,000 bank charges. First of all, bank charges not allowed, and 30,000 interest will be restricted to 20,000. Maximum is 20. So if interest is only 5,000, then only 5,000. If interest is 30,000, then maximum 20 is going to be allowed. So only interest expense against dividend and mutual fund profits, and that also restricted to 20%. Clubbing of income, no amendment. Set off and carry forward of losses, no amendment. So lastly, we come to the amendments of deductions under chapter 6A. 80EEA. 80EEA is the loan for home loan, is the deduction for interest on home loan. The loan which was allowed to be sanctioned up to 31st March, loan taken during 1920 can be taken up to 21 also. So they have extended it 1 year. In fact, in the next year's budget, which is applicable for May 22, they have further extended it for 1 more year. Fresh registration provision of charitable trust will be applicable for 80G also. 80GGA, maximum donation. 80GGA is not donation. 80 GGA is not donation. 80 GGA is not donation, it is contribution. But you can use the word actually donation because it is rural development or urban poverty eradication, which people who have PGBP take the deduction under either 35 it is scientific research or 35 CCA maybe. But if people don't have PGBP, then they come and take deduction here. And here the cash donation will be maximum 2000 rupees. Just like we have the limit in 80G, we now have the limit in 80 GGA also. In your section 80 IAC, tax deduction for startups, 100% of their profits, there are a couple of amendments. Amendment number 1, the turnover limit which was 25 crores is enhanced to 100 crore. The year in which you want deduction, maximum your turnover cannot be more than 100 crore instead of 25 crore. Last year it was 25, now it will be 100 crore. Second, this deduction was available for any 3 consecutive years out of your first 7 years. But now, instead of first 7 years, it will become first 10 years. 3 consecutive years out of first 10 years. So, 2 amendments within the same section. 25 crore turnover limit increases to 100 crore. And second, 7 years changes to 10 years. Next, for 80 IAC and 80 JJAA, CA report is required. Same condition now, same amendment. On or before the tax audit due date, not the return filing due date. In 80 IBA also, the project approval date has been extended from 31st March 20 to 31st March 21. Same extension. And we have a newly introduced section 80M. Because dividend income has become taxable, so a company which receives dividend then distributes dividend. Receive dividend, distribute dividend. Then there is a deduction. To a domestic company. What has the company done? In respect of dividend received from another domestic company or foreign company or a business. So who am I? I am a domestic company. I receive dividend. From where do I receive dividend? It can be from a domestic company or a foreign company or a business trust. First of all, no DDT. So wherever I receive dividend, it will come in IFOS and my GTI. Any dividend received by why only a domestic company, any assessee will come in my GTI. But what have I done with this dividend money? I did not keep it with me. I distributed it to my shareholder. Then we will give you a deduction of 100% of dividend received. The deduction shall be restricted to the dividend distributed up to the 139(1) due date. So in simple language, dividend received or distributed, whichever is lower. So if you receive 1 lakh but distribute only 60,000, 1 lakh will come in your income, deduction will be only 60,000. If you receive 1 lakh and distribute 1 lakh 50, maybe you add some own funds also. So income will have 1 lakh and deduction can be maximum 1 lakh. Dividend received or distributed, whichever is lower, but distribution up to due date of return filing, not beyond that. Distributed up to 139(1) due date, and of course, no other deduction will be allowed in respect of the same amount. And for the extra chapters, no amendment except the equalization levy part, the additional part which we have already covered earlier. And then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this was your amendment lecture in English language applicable for May 21 and November 21 attempt. We already have covered the amendments except that stamp duty value which came latest. We have covered all the amendments in our revision cum amendment lecture. Also, due to request of students, we made it in more detail. But now we have separate amendment lectures also. And this was the English version. The Hindi-English mixed version will soon follow. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good time. All the best. Please take care of yourself.